Welcome back to the channel, and here we are with more Fallout 4 content, more beginners tips, and today what I thought I would do, or what I hope to do, was to give you recommendations on what perks to pick early in the game. However, the perks and the perk selection in this game is more complicated than I at least thought, and so we're going to go through and we're going to explain how all the different perk systems work in this game, and I'm going to give you some logic behind your perk selection and some suggestions on some perks that you need to consider fairly early in the game. Should be good. Let's do it. So as you're probably starting to figure out, Fallout 4 is a very complex game, lots and lots of things to learn, and right at the centre of that is the skill tree and the different perks and whatnot that you have to contend with and work at, what they all do and what are best for you and what are not, what you should ignore, and there's just so much to do. So I went to my Fallout community and enlisted their help. Yes, we did get a little bit scientific, and what I want to do today is just to try and go through all the different perks and skill tree and everything, and try and give you a starting point, or at least some recommendations on how to approach this, where to spend your points, and where you can get certain buffs from, and so that you're not wasting time doing all kinds of stuff, spending points in the wrong place, etc, etc. At least you've got a better understanding of how everything kind of works and connects together. So that's the objective for today. Let's see how we go. Let's see if we can meet that expectation. So very early in the game, in fact in the first 10 minutes, you are going to meet the Vault Tech guy, and the Vault Tech guy is going to ask you to make a choice, and he's going to bring up this menu here, which is the specials menu. Now be aware, you don't have to worry about the numbers at this point, but be aware that the specials menu links to every single skill, perk, whatever you want to call them, buff, whatever you want to call them in the game. And what we're going to talk about today will all come back to this special set of perks. So what is the special set of perks? Well, I've put together a wee chart for you so you can get your head around what these actually are, and I'll give you some explanations or descriptions of each of these. So here's a little graphic that I prepared earlier, and here is the specials. Now we're going to go through these one at a time. I'm going to explain every one as they're described by Bethesda, and you might be able to get your head round these a little bit better. But also I'm going to link these, how these work with the other different buffs in the skill tree. So don't worry if you don't get it straight up, it will all make sense by the end of the video. So first up is strength, and this is a measure of raw physical power, and it affects how much you can carry and the damage of all melee weapons. But just think of this as the kind of carrying and damage perk that you need to spec into, and if you want to go for raw damage and build, this is where you have to concentrate. Okay, so the next one is perception, and perception says is your environmental awareness and sixth sense, and affects weapons accuracy in VATS. So if you're a VATS player, certainly perception is going to be one you need to pay attention to. Next is endurance. This is a measure of your overall physical fitness, so stamina in other words, and it affects your total health and action points. So if you're going for more of a health build and action point build, then endurance is very important. Okay, let's move on to charisma. So charisma is your ability to charm and convince others. It affects your success and persuade in dialogue and prices. So you can get better prices by having speccing into charisma, but also persuading people that you're going to meet in the Commonwealth to do things that they would maybe not normally do. And that can be a lot of fun when you get into the game a little bit further, is having that option, that extra option, just to circumnavigate some of the kind of laborious long discussions that you're going to have with NPCs. So I actually enjoy having charisma fairly strong, but up to you, and that's what that's about. So what is intelligence about? I'm maybe not the right person to be talking about intelligence, but intelligence basically is a measure of your overall mental acuity and affects the number of experience points earned. So if you want to get XP quickly, intelligence is certainly worth speccing into. So moving on to agility. Agility talks about a measure of overall finesse and reflexes. It affects the number of action points and VATs and your ability to sneak. So certainly if you're going for a stealth build, agility, you might want to spec into agility reasonably heavily. And also, you know, when you start the game, maybe if you're going for a sneaky build, then that'd be worth specking into very, very early. And finally, we come to luck. And it's a measure of general good fortune, and it affects the recharge rate of critical hits. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the full perk tree, so you can see all of those together. And if you want to take a quick screenshot, you can just have that around you so that you can reference it for the future. Okay, G4, but how does this all work with the skill tree? So let's go into the skill tree now. So you see across the top, you have all these the specials across the top. Now, something to understand with this skill chart is that all the strength perks are going to go down vertically like that. So these are all strength perks. All these going all the way down the chart are strength perks. And of course, the next line is all perception perks and so on and so forth. So very important that you understand, not something that I picked up and understood straight out the gate. I didn't realize that all of these were linked. I just used to be randomly picking what I thought was good and ignoring the rest. So again, depending on what build you're going for and how you're going to spec into them, will depend on how you go down vertically on this chart. Of course, you can mix and match them, and you saw at the start when we spoke to the Voltec guy that we kind of done a fairly even spec into some of these special abilities. But you can see, even though I've spec'd into them, I can continue to add points to the core strength, for instance, perception, etc., up to, what's that, 10 or 11 points, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 points on each of these. So we can spec into those and strengthen those as we need to, or we can start to go into the other perks down here. And again, I spoke about my weapon philosophy. You should watch that video if you haven't already, because it speaks about talking about the perk tree a little bit more, and depending on what you're doing in the game, some of these perks you will not need to spec into straight away. So again, depending on what your weapon choice is, you may not need to spec into certain strength points or certain perception points or whatever. So for me, there are a number of perks that are essential kind of early on, but again, I don't want to tell you how to play the game. I more want to explain how the perks work in this game, and then you can make your determination. Now, when you do spec into this tree, what you're going to find is it will be level locked to some degree, so you're not going to be able to max out all of these perks straight away. You're going to have to play the game and level up to upgrade some of these perks to a certain level. But you should be at least able to put a couple of points in the majority of these perks fairly early. So you can see the perk chart gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of latitude to play the game exactly how you want to play the game and spec into the perks that you actually do physically need. Sometimes that's really difficult to try and figure out early, but hopefully we're helping with that. So you have another couple areas where you will pick up perks or buffs, if you want to think of them as buffs, to your character. One is picking up bobbleheads. Now, you would have seen I showed you in one of my beginner's guides. These can be very hard to see, but make sure you're picking them up. But you don't actually necessarily need to pick them up all at once. You can go after the ones that make sense for you to pick up. For instance, if you've spec'd into agility, then you go after the agility bobblehead. If you want better pricing, you pick up the barter bobblehead, and so on and so forth. So this is a nice little side game to play, but again, you can be very specific in what bobbleheads you want to pick up at any particular time. And I'm going to now go across and show you exactly where you can pick all of these bobbleheads up and where they're located. So here's a quick chart I've put together for you on the bobbleheads. If you want to just screenshot that, you can and go after them. But essentially, you have one bobblehead for each of the specials, and that will add a +1 point to each of those. And then in addition to that, you have the barter bobblehead that gives you a 5% better prices. Big guns increases your damage on heavy weapons by 25%. Energy weapons, again, energy weapons by 25%. Explosives increase the damage on explosives by 15%. Lockpicking makes lockpicking easier. Medicine increases the stimpaks by 10, healing on the stimpaks by 10%. Melee, again, melee weapons by 25%. Repair is an interesting one, increases the duration of the fusion core by 10%. Science will give you an extra guess on your hacking terminals, which is real good because those can be very, very tricky. Small guns, again, 25% additional damage to ballistic weapons. Sneak makes your character 10% harder to detect. Speech gives you an extra 100 caps for every vendor when you're bartering, which is kind of nice. And then your unarmed will increase your damage on unarmed attacks by 25%. So certainly those are worth going after. All of those, all you have to do is find them, pick them up, and that buff will be applied permanently. You don't have to keep them in your inventory or carry them around with you. It will be automatically applied, and then off you go. Likewise, there are a number of magazines scattered across the Commonwealth for you to pick up, and they all give you different buffs depending on what you're doing. So these, again, you can pick up. You can this is like another side game over and above the bobbleheads, and there is a ton of these magazines to collect, and certainly it's something that maybe not necessarily that you need to physically go out and focus on, but they're really nice to have a list of these magazines and where they are and go after them if you're a completionist. And again, you're going to get extra buffs to your character by doing this. So you can see there's all kinds of stuff there. A Stanley Awesome, for instance, gives you better health points. You know, they'll do all kind of various things, damage against different enemies, and so, you know, there are all kinds of stuff that benefits to doing this and getting these buffs in place. Unfortunately, I don't have a list that I can provide you with, or a slide I can provide you with for the magazines, because it's pages and pages long, but it is downloadable online. Just go and search it out. You'll find a ton of these. And when I first played the game, I actually had it sitting next to my computer on my console as I was playing, and I would tick these off as I went or highlight them to say I've done them. So it's a nice little side game, and who doesn't like free buffs to your character? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have to say today, apart from the fact that I might just give you a couple of recommendations on perks that I feel are necessarily at least early in the game. But having said that, follow any of these. You're free to make your own decisions, and at least you understand how the perk tree and all the different perk that you can pick up all kind of work together as one. Now, these are very much dependent on how you choose to play the game, but there is one, and this is also the Fallout community. My Fallout community have given me some recommendations on these. So, Bloody Mess. When an enemy explodes, nearby enemies may suffer the same fate. This gives you a huge buff huge buff in damage, and is certainly worth running. Idiot Savant. Now, there is a logic to this. Randomly receive XP bonus for an action may trigger 3 times XP for all kills for a short period of time. The lower your intelligence, the greater chance. So, if you're looking for XP buffs early in the game, and if you get XP buffs, you get to leveling up quicker, and then you can get more skill points. All kind of makes sense. So, certainly one that I'd recommend. Locksmith isn't necessarily needed straight up at the start of the game, but good to have and good to keep ahead of the lock picking. There's nothing worse than coming to certain parts of the map and you can't actually get into them or unlock them. Likewise, Hacker for the terminals is certainly one that I would recommend. One thing that you are going to find very, very, very early in the game is that you're going to become encumbered fairly quickly. So Strong Back is one that is a crutch perk for me. I love having that perk active. Likewise, Gun Nut. I like to be able to upgrade my guns as quickly as possible and make them OP. And I think the last one that I would say that you're going to need is Lone Wanderer. When adventuring with a companion, which I generally do all the time, you will do 25% more damage. And you pick up Dogmeat very early in the game, and so this perk's very strong very early. Other mentions, of course, Cap Collector if you want to invest 500 to raise your store and buying capacity. Local Leader is certainly one that you will have to activate fairly early in the piece. Obviously, if you're doing things like energy weapons, you're going to need science, etc. Like I said earlier, watch that video that I put together on weapon strategy, and that should explain why there. But again, up to you, ladies and gentlemen, what you want to use or what you want to utilize in your build. These are just some of the ones that I generally are my go-to perks when I'm playing Fallout and when I'm playing it early. So that's all I have for you today, ladies and gentlefolk. Hopefully it's given you a better understanding of how the perk system works in Fallout 4, and it helps you make informed decisions and enjoy the game even more. If it has been useful, a like rating is always appreciated. I do like hearing your comments, so if there's some perks that you prefer over mine, please feel free to add your comments down below, and I'll catch you next time on Gaming for XP. See ya.